Today is we're just upping the difficulty on yesterday's objective just a little bit, okay? And it's not any different than the last question we did on the quiz. You're going to do the same exact thing. In fact, some people would say these are easier because it was like that thing that I showed you the very first, or yesterday. We'll just take the denominators and multiply them by each other. That'll be your common denominator. So here's the example that we're going to be doing. 2x plus 1 over x minus 5 minus x minus 4 over x plus 1. Now, this one, because those denominators have nothing in common, the common denominator will be x minus 5 x plus 1. Okay, that's all you have to do, right? You don't have to get fancy. Like even with the 5p and the 7p, we had to do 35p, right? You could have multiplied them together, but it would have gave you a bit different answer that you would have had to reduce after to get to it. So always figure out your common denominator, and then they give us the answer even, okay? Now, this is not unlike the diploma, actually. Sometimes the diploma gives the entire work for a question. And they've got A, B, C, and D in certain parts of all the work. And the question asks, where did the person make the mistake? Right? They'll have always one of those. My recommendation to you, because for me, I find it very hard when students come up and they've got this like whole like page of work and they're like, where did I screw up? I'm like, I don't know. Like it's hard finding mistakes. So I find it easier just to do it and then look and go, oh yeah, here's where you made your mistake. You should have a 6 here, not a -2, right? Because I even find that, you know, I don't know if you guys have ever done this where you write your essay out, right? And then you read it over after. And it all makes sense, right? It looks good. And then you kind of leave it for 3 days, and then you read it, and you're missing words. Like a the's missing, an as missing. Like you got things spelled wrong. So that's weird. Like, because you'll actually see it there when it was so so close to the time you wrote it, right? But if you give it a couple days and then go back and read it, then you start seeing, oh, I missed a the, I missed an ah. Okay, so it's really hard finding mistakes, but it is pretty easy just to do it and then compare. Now, we are going to add or subtract these two. So we need a common denominator of x minus 5, x plus 1. And actually, this one's doing it x plus 1, x minus 5, but I just go x minus 5, x plus 1, x minus 5, x plus 1, right? Like I would do it the same. But do you see this denominator? Like this is the fraction here that we're turning into this one. Does everybody see that? Now, what do I have to do to this to get that? I got to multiply by x plus 1, don't I? So do that there as well. And then on this one here, what do I have to do to get this? I got to multiply by x minus 5, so we do the same thing here. Now that's the hard part, okay? But will some students not know how to do this at all? Of course, okay? And again, you may think, you know, you're in this one class, right? But there's a whole province writing, and it is pretty funny, some people that what their diploma looks like after, right? You just know they have not been to class. And it's weird, but I guess they're like, yeah, hey, I could probably get 100. I haven't been here all year, but I'm pretty smart. I can do this. Now, we'll work down, but we just have to remember that there's a minus sign here. That's a big deal. So this is something that you want to put in place. Okay, I'm not going to mess with that minus sign right now. I'm going to keep it out. But I will deal with it in a bit. Now, you guys all know about FOIL, right? Okay. So when you have two things like A plus B times C plus D, okay, here's your firsts. See, they're the first one of each. That's your first. Then the outer, okay, so basically you take A and multiply to those two. Then you take the B, which is the inner, and the last. Okay, so that's where you get your first, outer, inner, last. Basically, it's take the first one, multiply by those two. Then take the second one, multiply by those two. That's the other way to do it. But FOIL helps a lot of students. So with my 2x plus 1 and my x plus 1, I'm going to FOIL. So 2x times x, right? So here's my FOIL, my f. What is 2x? I'm going to write my common denominator on the bottom. That is 2x squared. Then my O, which is 2x times 1, is plus 2x. Now I'm going to do my inner, which is 1 times x, which is plus 1x. And my last, 1 times 1 is 1. Yes, you can. Minus. Again, putting the common denominator down. Now remember, there's a set of brackets here. I'll deal with that negative later. So FOIL. First is x squared. Outer minus 5x. Yes, x times negative 5. Inner is negative 4x. And last, negative 4 times negative 5 is negative 20. Positive 20, sorry. Okay. Now, just to make things a little bit simpler, we can always usually combine these two. This would equal 3x, and this would equal negative 9x. Now, what we need to do, first of all, I'm just going to rewrite the, we've got over x minus 5, x plus 1, x plus 1, x minus 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rewrite this top one, 2x squared plus 3x plus 1. And I'm actually going to take time out of my busy life, and I'm going to get this, I'm going to actually take time to do that one step. So that would be negative x squared. What would be next? Nope. Positive 9x. Negative 20. So that deserves a step, because students that skip that step get these questions wrong. That's me included. Whenever I'm preaching, do the steps, I'm not doing it because I'm like all high and mighty and I know you're all bad. So that's because I had to do it or I got it wrong, right? So I'm just talking from experience. Again, what have I wanted from? I always want you guys to get 100. I'm giving you every strategy that would help you get 100. I'm not trying to act like I know all. I just know all the mistakes I've made, and that really helps prevent it. Now you just want to have over your common denominator, and we're going to get like terms together. And if you've got to circle them or highlight them or whatever, but I have a 2x squared and a negative 1x squared. That is 1x squared. You can never get rid of the variables when you're adding and subtracting. It's like if you have 3 dogs minus 2 dogs, right? It's the dog stays, right? You don't just, like, if you have 3, like, you just don't put 1. You actually have to put the thing still. Okay? Now, next is the positive 3x, the positive 9x is positive 12x. And sometimes just crossing them out helps keep things straight. And then I've got a 1 and a negative 20 is negative 19. And the last thing, x cannot equal 5 and negative 1. Now, if you're a student that struggles on these, just doing this question alone, okay, I hear talking, I shouldn't. Just doing this question alone 5 times without copying it down, but just doing it, it'll help you master all the rest, okay? And again, I'm talking to those students that they're struggling and they're like, I want to be better at these. Okay? Obviously, I'm not talking to the student that is like, I'm not going to do my homework and I'm not going to do this stuff, right? Because, right, they're not thinking about how to get better. They're not thinking how to be successful. They're thinking about how to do as little as possible, right? And learn it. But if you just did this question 5 times, honestly, without copying it, right, you would get the concept really, really well. Okay? Now, let's keep going, and this one is much easier than the last one even. Now, one thing you might want to think is, oh, I'll just do by p squared minus 1 times p plus 1, right? Are you copying this stuff down, Lisa? What should we always do before we start doing anything? Adding, subtracting. Huh? Nope. Before a common denominator. Factor. Can I do any factoring here? Oh, we've done so many. We've done so many of these. Anybody see anything we can factor? Kayla? Is this a difference of squares? Okay. Now, honestly, this, I told you, the diploma just wants to know, do you know a difference of squares? I've probably given you 5 or 6 of them on quizzes, lots in the notes, right? Get good at seeing that. It's 2 perfect squares. And yes, 1 is a perfect square. That gets overlooked a lot. And just make sure it's minus. So what we're dealing with now is this question. 4 over p minus 1, p plus 1, plus 2 over p plus 1. You can't cancel, right? What would be a common denominator? Okay, so my common denominator would be p minus 1, p plus 1. So always take the time to write out this step and then do your arrows. What do I have to do to this to get this? Nothing. So your 4 stays. Actually, I should just put the 4 there and the 2 here. Now what do I have to do to this to get this? I got to multiply by p minus 1. Now, and it's really nice with the plus sign here, because you can just go for putting it all over the common denominator, and it's going to be 4 plus. Now there's a positive 2 there, so that gets multiplied to both of those. 2p minus 2. Okay. Now, up top I have a 2p, and what's 4 a negative 2 is 2. Now, if you ever get at a place, right, where you're thinking it's the end, just make sure you can't factor. Can I factor anything out of the top or bottom? Take out a 2, leaving you with p plus 1, all over p minus 1, p plus 1. This will cancel. My 4 and negative 2 became 2. So this will be 2 over p minus 1. P cannot equal. P can't equal 1. Plus or minus 1, because a negative 1 is bad there. Okay. Any questions about this one? You see, I'm doing the same thing every time, and that's how, especially if you're not comfortable with math, find a way to do it the same way every time. That's the secret. Because if you do it that way, after a while, it does make sense. And after a while, you don't have to think about it anymore. Unless you're doing it a different way every time, you're always going to be thinking and you're always going to be making mistakes. Okay? Now this one, this is a really, really unique example. Okay? Good question. Again, I have to have you ready for all those high difficulty, the excellence questions on your... You guys have this, don't you? Example 3. You won't have a little guy standing looking at the board, but you'll have the same question. I know that messed you up. Okay? Ignore guy. Are you ready? What should I do first? Okay, ladies, we need to stop chatting. No. Can I factor anything? Should you go right for the common denominator? Unless you're Yusuf, do not go right for the common denominator. Every time, every word, common denominator, common denominator. What's the date today? Common denominator. Right? This is go-to answer for everything. Okay, let's factor out the bottom first. Okay, and the other one? Can you take out a negative 4? Okay. Now, someone had some insight to take out a negative 4, and that's good, because now do you see these are the same? They don't look like it, do they? But they are. I didn't tell you this. Well, that was when we were trying to cancel before. This is what we're doing it with the common denominator. If you would have taken out a 4, you would have had this. And then you don't have a common denominator. But if you did take this out, you actually have these two the same now, don't you? Okay? And then a little trick can happen, because see how you have this negative and this negative? So that is... I don't think many people would see that unless I taught it. And I'm just going to write this in the correct order. So now we're at this stage. And there's a little bit of knowledge that gets you here. First of all, to know to take out a negative 4, so we have the denominators looking close. And then a negative times a negative is a positive. Whenever you have two signs, you multiply them together. Now, what would be a good common denominator? 12 x minus 3. Okay, now what do I have to do to this to get this? Multiply by 4. Okay, I got my x plus 5 here. What do I have to do to this to get this? Multiply by 3. Okay, so this will give me, now I can write this all over the common denominator. That's 8x plus 3x plus 15. That is 11x plus 15 over 12 times x minus 3. Can I factor anything out? No. And so then we just finish by saying x cannot equal 3. Okay, so today is all about the one question on your diploma that's going to be a hard one. Okay? Now, I actually want us to do one more question, so let's go to 4A in your homework. Yeah. Now, of course, like I said, they're not going to be given out hundreds in that diploma. You have to know your stuff. So a question like 4A. So what's the first thing we do? Yusuf, don't say anything. We don't have perfect squares. Yes, you do. In your homework. Your 4A is different? What page are we on?
Oh, it's a different page. 103, 102.
Yeah, well, where are you guys?
We're like 101.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's 2 4s. The second 4. You guys should have known what I was talking about. Okay, so the second 4. The second 4. Okay, so looking up at A. Let's see as a class if we could get through this one, if this was a diploma question. So you should be hearing in the back of your head, don't do common denominator yet. Don't do common denominator. That's what Yusuf would do. I'm not going to do that. Okay? What should I do before common denominator? There isn't perfect squares here. If it was a squared minus 4, but it's a squared plus 4a, so it really fails on a lot of levels. What can I do? Take out an a for the first one, which would leave me with a plus 4. And on the second one, take out an a, leaving me with a minus 3. Okay? So now this is when Yusuf's voice should pop in your head. Now what can you do? What is a common denominator? A plus 4, a minus 3. So again, take the time to do this step. A plus 4, a minus 3. A plus 4, a minus 3. Okay, and then the 4 should be there and your 3 should be there. Right? That's from the original. Now, what do I have to do to this to get this? Okay, and what do I got to do to this one to get this? A plus 4. Now, if you get to this stage, like that's really the money, right? The rest I know you guys can handle. Oh. Sorry. Now, this is all going to be over a plus 4, a minus 3. And you just distribute. That would be 4a minus 12. Now, remember, this is a plus, so we're golden to just go like this. If it was a minus, that'd be minus 3 minus 12, right? But that is plus 3a plus 12. Okay, then what happens? Yeah. 12s would go. And then? Not done. Are those multiplying? Yeah, so I can get rid of them. So it would be 7 over a plus 4 times a minus 3. A cannot equal. Here can't equal 0. Here it can't equal negative 4. And here 3. Okay, so so that 4 on the page before, I would just ignore that when I'm giving you the that is just weird. Okay, so here's what we're doing for homework. So we're doing 1 A C D. So this is all in your book, by the way, not in your workbook, but in the book you're in right now. 2 B D, 3 A B D. Now 4, obviously I'm doing second 4. Oh, so maybe that's supposed to be your 3. Okay, so 1, 2, change that first 4, change that to 3. Then it goes 4. I'll get that corrected in the book for next year. Yep. Well, it's a culmination of a lot of people. I'm trying to clean it up. Okay, so please don't start talking. Let's get to working through these because I'm seeing a big difference in the class. There's some students that are getting it quick and some students have no idea how to find a common denominator yet.